So welcome to Run With Us. We are a specialty running shoe store here in Pasadena. We've been here, it will be 20 years actually in February. And one of the reasons why we are here is I grew up in this area and we never had someone who had a specialty on fitting and the importance of using running shoes to help take away and stave off a lot of injuries, a lot of aches and pains that happen when we take on running and running these long distances. So today we're going to talk a little bit about why we're so successful here and what that means for you, the runner. It's about 1,600 steps per mile when you run. So you can imagine, just do the math and what that means. And the importance of a running shoe and why it's different than any other shoe, it's that it's been tested for 500 miles of compression. What they do is they take a metal ball peen and they put it on the material that they make a midsole out of, and they just turn the lights off in the laboratory, and they found a equivalent measurement of the average weight of a person and the average height of a person, what that would look like on compression on a shoe. That's the weight of that ball peen, and they've come out to 500 miles. That's about the lifespan of the cushioning system of a shoe. If you take a shoe like this is the most important part of a shoe here. It's called the midsole. It's not the upper and it's not the tread. So a lot of times people like to look at the design of the upper because it makes them more fashionable, it fits with their outfit. When you're taking 600 steps per mile, your body cannot see the color or the design of the shoe. All it knows is it taking care of the impact. Let's talk a little bit more about the impact. When you leave the ground, you may have heard this, it's 10 times your body weight. Where do we get that number from? The force of gravity on the earth is 9.087 meters per second times your body weight. They just rounded it up to 10. So take your body weight times 10, 1,600 times. It's amazing how we don't hurt ourselves more often. I'm often amazed of why we don't get hurt more often. The biggest problem with running is torque. When we land on the ground, our bodies are designed to absorb shock. That's how we know that we were made to run. It's just very difficult to be doing it continuously. That's where the training comes in. So, if you take that pressure on your body and you apply it to the shoe, now we've taken care of a lot of the impact forces, but we haven't taken care of the torque. There's two types of foot. There's one that either overpronates or one that's neutral to a supinator. Now there's variances within those two types. You can go with someone who's a severe overpronator, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the type of arch. I know there's a lot of information out there. If you're flat-footed, you're probably going to be an overpronator. It is true to the point, but it's just a guide that we use. You could have high arches and have flexible ankles, which would cause a lot of torque, the same way as someone who's flat-footed and would cause a lot of torque. So, what we do here specifically is try to match the amount of torque that you're receiving to the shoe designed to keep your foot neutral. The foot can move in 4 different directions, right? So it moves laterally, it moves medially, and it does forward and a back, so a dorsiflexion and a plantar flexion. Not a problem for the foot. The only problem is that the knee only flexes and extends. It's not designed to go laterally or medially. And that's where a lot of the problem happens with taking that 1,600 steps per mile. What you want to do is you want to make sure that the shoe keeps your foot neutral. And if the shoe keeps your foot neutral, then there's a chance it's going to keep the knee and the hip neutral. There are really no other shoes on the market besides running shoes that address overpronation. It's a stability post that they make inside the shoe, and it's designed for one thing. This one doesn't have it, but I'll show you one that does in a minute. So that's why if you're going to be running, you should be in a running shoe. And I know there's ways to kind of skimp on the money of these shoes, but the ones that are cheap, inexpensive is probably a better word to use, they're not tested for that 1600 steps per mile. They just kind of look like a running shoe. They're kind of designed like a running shoe, shaped, whatever you want to call it, but they have not been tested for that 10 times body weight person doing 1600 steps per mile. We've been here almost 20 years now, and for that 20 years, we've taken away a lot of pain by just applying the right shoe to the right person. Running is going to be hard as it is. It's going to be uncomfortable as it is. You don't have to make it any more uncomfortable by being in the wrong footwear. It's a very simple fix to make that pathway easier. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we do here and why we sell these particular shoes. You can get them anywhere, but if you don't have someone to show you and kind of get you into different types of shoes to see which one fits right, then you're kind of shooting in the dark and you're going to waste a lot of time and probably a lot of money. The difference between these companies, really the only major difference between any of the companies is that they have one distinctive shape. They're going to make their shoe shaped one way, and that's it. Now, if you're an average woman of a size 8 or an average man of a size 10, there's millions of other people who have that same size, but there are going to be a million other shapes to that foot. Well, how do you figure that out? Well, you come in and you try all the great brands that we sell here that have been proven to work, and they're the only ones we carry, because if it doesn't work for our customers, then it's not going to work for us here. So knowing that, you have to actually try on multiple different brands to see which one is matched like your foot shape. The worst advice you can ever give someone is tell them that the shoe that you're wearing is the best shoe, because that is a lie. It is not the best shoe. It's the best shoe for you. It is not the best shoe for your friend. And I don't care how close you are. I don't care if it's your daughter, your son, your father, your mother. You don't have the same shaped foot. So the best thing to do is tell them that they should get a shoe that is the right support for them. Other than that, let them go out and figure that out, or find someone like us who have a lot of experience fitting people for that. So real quick, we'll walk over to the wall and we'll show you what a stability shoe looks like. I always like to use this one as an example because this is the most supportive shoe on the market right now. They've been making this shoe since the early 80s. Brooks is only a running shoe company. It's what you call a straight lash shoe, and in that straight lash shoe, it's shaped like a box. And so it creates a platform. Then they double up the density on the inside here. It's like a rock in here. This thing is made not to give. I don't care how much you weigh, how strong you are, this thing is made not to give. Then it's reinforced with plastics. This is for someone when they run and they land on their foot, it severely rotates this way at a degree that it pulls so much of everything that's connected to the foot, which is like shin splints, things that can cause stress fractures because of that 1600 steps per mile. This will stop it. And then there's variances in between. You would just go a regular stability shoe. Here, they usually paint it a different color to show that double density, and that's kind of just a regular stability shoe. So those are the things there that we do with shoes. Now we walk over here and I'll show you socks real quick. Here in socks, now one of the things that they found out in the running world is that cotton is the most absorbent material that you can use, and it's the most comfortable. But if you've ever spent hours in cotton sweating, it could be very uncomfortable after a while because it can cause chafing, and it absorbs all the moisture, but it won't dry. It takes forever to dry cotton. That's why you put it on a high temperature when you're washing your cotton clothes, because you want it to dry when you're trying to dry them. So none of these have cotton in them. They're a synthetic thing where they're not made to necessarily expand. They're just made to just pull the moisture out, so it just goes into the air. It goes into the shoe. The shoe is designed to get that moisture out, and it eventually dries. One of the other things they put in them is spandex. Spandex keeps the shape of the sock over washing time, but it also hugs the foot, so that way you could move freely and the sock moves with you and not against you, which causes friction. Again, 1600 steps per mile. If you can imagine, it's a lot of friction. Speaking of friction, since we're in this area, we have lubricants that help with, for guys, a lot of times we get a lot of rash in here because again, we're sweating. Our skin gets clammy, skin on skin causes abrasion, and this can actually help with, putting lubricant in there so you can help with not getting chafy because it really burns. You can put it on your feet where you get blisters. We have powders, we have all kinds of things. All this stuff is here to make that journey easier. We have support socks, and for people that are having shin areas, you need a little bit of compression. Compression kind of supports the muscle to the bone, and what that does is it just kind of gives support. It's the same thing you would support anything. Over here we also have clothing, things that make that journey a little easier. These are women's shorts here that have a liner compression in there, and that's just to avoid, again, the chafing in the thighs. And then these materials are designed to take moisture. They're moisture management materials. They've been tested for a lot of movement, a lot of sweating. They also have spandex in there because the worst thing that can happen is when two forces are going against each other and it creates friction. You want your clothes to move with you, you want your shoes to move with you. You don't want those two things to be separate, because if they are, then there's a chance of friction. So again, that also goes back to the shoe fitting process of what brand may be shaped to the contours of your foot. And each brand, we try to get to the closest for each person, which is an individual thing. We have supports and we have massage things to help get through the 1,600 steps per mile soreness. And then most of you, if you're training for a marathon, you're talking about an exponential amount of mileage where muscle soreness and muscle tearing is just inevitable, and getting that massage stuff out and helping yourself be ready for the next run, getting you back into that is important. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We also do have hydration packs, which are important. Now that it's getting darker, we may need lights for to be able to see in the dark, or people to see you. We have a lot of lights here that are really easy to use and manageable. They have really great lumens. Most of them are USB plug-ins, so you don't have to worry about plugging them into a wall jack or anything like that. So our hydration is here in the corner. We can show you that over here real quick. There's different ways to get your hydration. Some of the most popular way now is a vest. Some of these are almost built like a t-shirt. So there's almost shirt material, really simple, easy to carry. During the marathon, most of the time they'll offer you the nutrition and the water that you need, but during training, you have a great group in the groups that you're training with, but sometimes it's better to just make sure that you're in control of that. A good quick thumb that I always use is drink every 30 minutes. 4 drinks is about 4 ounces, and eat every hour. And that way you do small amounts of that. You never get to the point where you're super hungry, and you don't eat too much. And that way you just maintain and get used to that amount of nutrition. Other than that, I'm sure there's a plethora of stuff online that you can find as far as the nutrition part. So again, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, and thanks for coming in.